The Trump administration reportedly preparing an executive order now penalizing major banks and possibly crypto companies for discrimination over politics or dropping conservative customers. The Wall Street Journal reviewing a draft of the order, which could be signed this week. It writes this, quote, directs bank regulators to investigate whether any financial institutions may have violated the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, antitrust laws, or consumer financial protection laws. Violators could be subject to monetary penalties, consent decrees, or other disciplinary measures. President Trump calling out J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America, saying that both refused to accept more than $1 billion of his deposits. Both banks are denying the claims. I've personally spoken to lawmakers and members of the president's family over this, and they discussed their personal debanking experiences with me. Here's First Lady Melania Trump. Your bank canceling your account, you know, this pushback from so many areas of your life that you never saw before, but suddenly the powers that be wanted to cancel you. What happened and how did that feel?
It happened already in the White House, and soon he announced for politics, but later on, more when we left the White House, when I established my own business. As you said, the bank suddenly informed me they will not be able to do business with me anymore. Also, I had very prominent email distribution service provider just rapidly terminated my agreement. So suddenly, as well as the university, I was all agreed that they will accept my donations for the foster students, and because of the board directors, they called back, they found out that it was me, they didn't, they said we cannot go on. And it's very, very sad, because who suffered? They were children from foster community. They didn't have a scholarship that somebody will provide for them. They didn't want to do business with me because of political affiliation, my political beliefs.
I also spoke with the president's son, Eric Trump, about this. Here's what he said.
Maria, I never thought I'd fall into the world of crypto until every bank started canceling us for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than the fact that my father was in politics, right? I mean, we got canceled by absolutely everybody. They came after us viciously.
Which banks canceled you? What happened?
Oh, God, everybody. Capital One being the largest. I've sued them recently. Chase canceled us.
Okay, so it was Capital One, because I know that Capital One also canceled Melania Trump, I understand as well. So it was Capital One. Yeah. Who else?
Maria, you can't believe when you get those calls, right? And they came after us viciously because my father was in the White House and they wanted to punish us, right? The legal lawfare from the Biden administration was unbelievable. That doesn't mean that banks should cancel people because of political views. That's exactly what Capital One did. Chase did the same thing. Bank of America did the same thing. TD did the same thing. First Republic did the same thing to us. Maria, you wouldn't believe the stories that I heard as I traveled around the country on the campaign trail. The weaponization is real. And it has to stop. You can't have banks pick who they're going to lend to, who they're going to service in the United States of America based on their political affiliation. Yep. We were targeted, and we're going to hold those banks accountable.
J.P. Morgan telling Fox Business, quote, we don't close accounts for political reasons, and we agree with the president that regulatory change is desperately needed. We commend the White House for addressing this issue and look forward to working with them to get this right. In January, Bank of America wrote this: we serve more than 70 million clients and we welcome conservatives. We are required to follow extensive government rules and regulations that sometimes result in decisions to exit client relationships. We never close accounts for political reasons and do not have a political litmus test. A Capital One spokesperson said this: Capital One has not and does not close customer accounts for political reasons. Now, we've reached out to First Republic and TD Bank as well. We've not heard back. Adam, I could only speculate about how much pressure these banks were under by federal regulators under the Biden administration and Democrat leadership to quote unquote manage reputational risk is what I'm hearing they told these banks. So I'm not condoning it. Obviously, they need to ensure that they are not canceling people for political reasons. But I also want to make sure we put in there that this is what happens under the Democrats. They did this to social media as well. Remember all those cancellations that we saw? And the banks, obviously, you know, the president and his family said that they did it.
This country was trapped in a yoke of woke. The weight of that on all of our shoulders, and thank goodness that has been lifted. It is long time coming. I want to know who actually made the calls to the banks and what did that conversation sound like? What was the arm twisting that happened there? Was it behind the scenes channeling? Were there lawyers who were involved? Was it actual lawmakers? I don't know, but that's why there's going to be an investigation, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. But this is not American. You can't discriminate against people. And I, as a conservative, certainly am very sensitive to what they have all experienced.
Well, it's not enough to just say we were pressured.
Right.
Okay. Somebody needed to speak out at the time and say, we're feeling pressure to cancel conservatives. We want to make sure people understand we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
We should have heard a comment back then when they were pressured. But I do believe they were pressured by the Democrats.
Well, first of all, good morning, you two. But I also think, listen, if they were pressured, what's happening right now and what I'm watching is, number one, reputational management that they're going to have around the country, with 50% of this country that, remember, are conservative and could retaliate, but also in Washington. And over the last 2 weeks, we've had several of these banks hire conservative consultants to represent them in anticipation of this EO. And that's who I'm going to be watching over the next few months as this comes out.
And I like what J.P. Morgan said, because their statement said, we don't close accounts for political reasons, but we agree with President Trump that regulatory change is desperately needed. What would that regulatory change look like?
And it's going to be very, very difficult to prove that. And I don't know if you both saw Senator Brownback this morning and over the last 24 hours, because he was targeted himself for a compassionate conservative organization that he was involved in, that he was not able to get a loan. And so I think that more and more people are going to come out and talk about this. But again, I think it's a PR issue right now more than I think it's going to be a legal issue.
Yes, I would agree. And I think you made the comment that this is a messaging mission right now that the White House is on. And so the banks are coming back and almost like choir boys lined up saying, well, you know, we wouldn't do this.
Well,
of course
President
not.
Trump's going to put a stop to it, that's for sure.